soul longs to color outside the lines. Tear back the curtain, sun, come in and shine. I want to walk beyond the boundaries where I've never been before. Throw open doors to a world outside the lines. How many times do we do this? How many times do you want to do this? 3 times? Sure, sure. Get the bossa going here. You are holy, you are whole, you are always evermore than we ever understand. You are always at hand. Blessed are you coming here. Blessed are you coming here to your church in wine and bread, raised from soil, raised from dead. You are holy, you are wholeness, you are present. Let the cosmos praise you, God. Hallelujah, 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 our God. You are holy, you are whole, you are always evermore than we ever understand. You are always at hand. Blessed are you coming near. Blessed are you coming here to your church in wine and bread, raised from soil, raised from dead. You are holy, you are wholeness, you are present. Let the cosmos praise you, God. Hallelujah, 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 our God.
For this one?
Got one more for you here. Thanks for joining us.
We are standing on holy ground. We are standing on holy ground. God has called us, we are journey bound. Standing on holy ground. In God's presence we gather together and given the challenge to grow. We open our hearts as we worship and work to find where God wants us to go. We are standing on holy ground. We are standing on holy ground. God has called us, we're journey bound, standing on holy ground. We remember Christ journeyed before us, and we need not fear the unknown. God is our guide from beginning to end. Our journey is never alone. We are standing on holy ground. We are standing on holy ground. God has called, we are journey bound, standing on holy ground. Holy Spirit, direct and unite us and fill us with worship and praise, that we may act upon God's call to service and joyfully live out our days. We are standing on holy ground. We are standing on holy ground. God has called us, we're journey bound, standing on holy ground.
Wow, Chinook Winds Region. It's just so great to sing together and to be community together and to have had these wonderful days together. We're at the point of the agenda where I get to give my executive minister's report. And I feel like we've talked a lot already about the things that I plan to say, but I already wrote it, so I'm going to give it to you anyway. I'm so glad to be here with all of you today. It is such a great gift to serve as your executive minister, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of the ministry here in Chinook Winds Region. We've spent the last few months reflecting on our theme, flourishing where living water flows, as we've prepared for this meeting. And it draws us into Ezekiel's vision of a small trickle from the temple that grows into a river so wide and deep that it can't be crossed. And wherever that river goes, it brings life. And as I think about the work of the region right now, this is really a very powerful and fitting image. As we mark the centennial of the United Church of Canada, we give thanks for the legacy that we've inherited, but we're also being called to release what no longer gives life and trust the Spirit to lead us into something new. The river is flowing, not backwards, but forward, and wherever it flows, life shows up. Over the past year, we've seen that movement of the Spirit across Chinook Winds region in ways that are both faithful and hopeful. In our communities of faith, we're beginning to reimagine leadership. Some are bravely discerning endings, and others are forming bold new partnerships. But this isn't easy work, but it is deeply Spirit-led. And our role as a region, as your staff, is to walk alongside you through it all, with your flourishing being our focus. In the area of leadership, we've continued to invest in opportunities for learning and renewal through leadership. Our clergy retreat this winter was a meaningful space for reconnection and rest. We know how demanding ministry can be, and we're committed to supporting leadership that is resilient, rooted, and responsive to this moment in the life of the church. and we plan to offer this event and others in the coming year. First Third Ministry continues to be a place of real vitality and inspiration. You heard a lot about it already yesterday. From Camp Caravan to youth gatherings to our campus ministry work, these programs are helping young people find a sense of belonging and purpose in the church, something in this crazy world that can be hard to find. And they're not just preparing to lead in the future, they're leading right now. Their voices and presence in our region is a real, tangible sign of hope. And just so you know, this isn't happening everywhere in the church, so we can really see how the investment that we've decided to make in First Third Ministry is making a real difference and having an impact. Our public witness continues to deepen, especially through Tony Snow's work in Indigenous justice and reconciliation. From education to ceremony, to advocacy, this work continues to shape who we are becoming as a region. I'm also excited to share that Tony's gifts are being noticed at the national level, and we're in conversation about how Tony can support the National Indigenous Church as it finds its way forward. I'm happy for Tony to have the opportunity to contribute to the formation of the National Indigenous Church. Our affirming ministry work continues through our support of Affirming Connections. And I have to admit, I had a little twinge when Pam Rocker said, when you're writing your report and you're having trouble figuring out what you should put in it, so we have a little work to do to revitalize that ministry. At the regional level, as in communities of faith, we know the realities of declining resources, and we're responding with collaboration, creativity, and care. The Staff and Finance Advisory Council, which is chaired by Sue Broderick, are working hard to steward our budget so that we continue offering meaningful support and resources into the future. Our plan is to develop a 5-year financial plan in the coming year. I keep coming back to the reminder that flourishing doesn't always look like growth. Sometimes it looks like clarity or courage, or simply creating space for the Spirit to move again, for a trickle to become a stream. So I want to take this time to introduce the incredible Chinook Winds staff team, the people who are walking alongside you every day, often behind the scenes. But instead of reading a list of names and job titles, we're going to do something a little different. They're really thrilled with me, just so you know. Our theme says that ministry flows like water. It shows up in many forms. So I asked each staff member to answer this question. If your ministry were a river, what kind of river would it be? So they're going to begin by telling you their name and their position and then respond to that question. So if you'll all come up here. I did want to extend regrets from Jess Beckerly. She isn't able to be with us today. She is our admin and pastoral relations support, and she had a family commitment that kept her away. Their answers in just a moment.
I don't think I did what was asked. Sorry. No. So my name is Pamela Evans. I'm the First Third Ministry team lead, and I chose a verse from Billy Joel's song River of Dreams, which goes like this. This describes part of the ministry we do. In the middle of the night, I go walking in my sleep, through the desert of truth to the river so deep. We all end in the ocean. We all start in the streams. We're all carried along by the river of dreams.
Well, I won't be singing, but Lisa Penzo with Camping Ministries, and my river would be a hidden creek you stumble across. Easy to miss, but full of sparkle and surprises in life. That, it also slowly widens that you could paddle on it. Sometimes smooth, sometimes a little rapids and rough, full of laughter, holy mischief, and deep questions. And yes, the occasional bug in your mouth, it does happen. It's a place where transformation quietly begins, and even if we lose our paddle, or both along the way, we eventually end up where we're supposed to be.
Hi, I'm Leanne Templeton. I'm the archivist. The archives would be stiller waters, wetlands like marshes, with unexpected depths, abundance among the reeds, trails and paths, beaver runs beneath the vegetation.
Chris Mapoy, First Third Ministry, and the Networks and Justice Coordinator for Chinook Winds. I wish I had thought about this more. I think that for someone who works in two different roles, it's two different rivers, which is often really challenging because I am not in great shape, so portaging between one river to another is really difficult, and often it means I spend a lot more time in one river than I do in the other, which is something I'm working on. And oftentimes it also feels like an underground river, one that is only accessible by cave. And sometimes it moves underground unseen, and sometimes it creates a giant sinkhole that I'll get the joy of us all falling into together in the best possible way.
My ministry is like paddling down a river that is sometimes rocky, like a river coming out of the Rocky Mountains, or sometimes has a beautiful soft bottom like the Milk River. And along the way are beautiful individuals and communities of people doing interesting and amazing ministries. And I get to hear about those and then tell those stories to the next individuals and people further down the river. And it's wonderful until I have to turn around and go back upstream. But it always works out.
Hello, beautiful people. I'm Karen Medland, if none of you know who I am. And I'm your regional minister responsible for pastoral relations and community faith support. And my river changes every single day. Some days it feels like I'm running to the rapids and I'm not sure what's going to happen when we fall off the edge of the waterfall. And some days it is sitting in those languid pools, talking and sharing and going into deep dives with each and every one of you. So my river changes every single day depending on what you call me to do.
I'm Michelle Slater, and I'm going to focus on my work with leadership. But before that, I want to say I don't care about my name tag anymore. Now I care about my earring that I lost, just caught in my hair. It's just like the United Church crest shape, and it's silver, and it's very simple. Anyway, if you find it, just put it with my name tag. Give it to Alan at the back. That would be great. The river of the ministry that is leadership is sometimes rapids of providing accompaniment and resources and equipping and skills for really challenging times in ministry. Sometimes shallow Bays, do rivers have bays? No. Shallow little areas where you can pull in and take a deep breath. Eddies, there you go. Take a deep breath and just rest and reflect on your ministry. And sometimes you come across kind of a really deep hole where you could go for a big dive with colleagues and think about what your ministry really is and who God really is and what you need in order to keep going on the journey.
I'm Jess Andrews, she, her, with Campus Ministry in Calgary, and my river, the river that I think of with my ministry, our ministry, is when you're hiking through the forest and you need a spot to stop for lunch, and you find a little swimming hole along the creek. And at our swimming hole, it's okay if you just dip your toe in. It's okay if you just maybe splash some water on your face. Or maybe you brought your kayak along and you're gonna kayak around and just dive right in and let yourself go to the overwhelming abundance of God's grace.
I'm Mauricio Araujo. I'm the assistant to the hardest working executive minister in the United Church. I'm a river that sprung in São Paulo, Brazil, a river that flowed north coming to Canada in 1986, a river that has become Canadian not only in geography, but also in heart, a new settler that has been welcomed here with open arms. As a young spring, I did not have the capacity to dream such big dreams that this country has provided me over the 40 years that I've been here. Thanks be to God, or as we say in Portuguese, graças a Deus.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joel Denhan. I serve two consulting roles with Chinook Winds Region. I consult on property and finance to the region, and then I'm also the coordinating consultant for our Property and New Church Development Council, who holds various lands and properties for further ministry planning on behalf of the region. And just before I begin, I want to thank those of you who have been able to offer condolences and thanks for the prayers and the caring that has been shown in my family's experience over the past several days. So thank you very much. My river is actually an artesian aquifer under the surface that is part of what flows and grows underneath and helps build abundance when it's healthy and flowing. And when an artesian aquifer is not managed in a way that is healthy and sustainable, it can cause great disruption, as only our good folks in Airdrie might know, as the aquifer eventually undermines the work that we do. So I try and help us manage the artesian aquifer of God's river underneath us in a way that is creative. Thank you.
Good day. I was wanting to say it was a tsunami, but that's ocean. So, and coming from Mauricio's beautiful example, reminded me that many Indigenous nations are core to a mountain, to a stream, to a water body. And those are important markers in the land. I think about Minithni, which is our cold water river, runs through our community. It is a place of travel. It's a place of guidance. We remember that in our work. For me, that river is always steady and continuous. And that's what our ministry is eventually getting to, that point where we have much more support, much more understanding, much more involvement. It's very good to be here to represent Indigenous ministries.
I feel incredibly lucky to work with this team. Thank you all for the many ways you show up with courage, creativity, and deep faith. Your staff team. And finally, I want to thank you, all of you, for your ministries, your leadership, and your witness. I particularly want to thank our executive, our volunteers, and every community of faith who shows up with honesty and hope. You are the heart of this region. Let's keep wading these waters together. We are not alone. The river is flowing, and where it flows, life comes. Thank you.
I believe I'm going to talk a little bit about Indigenous ministry with the group. We have about 10 minutes, which is less because of their time frame. And just some highlights of what we are working on this year. In your brochures, you'll find the map that we have. Half an hour. I can do that. In that case, from the very beginning, we have a lot of work going on that goes on an annual basis, highlighting the different times of the year when there are opportunities to reach out to various communities. So I do that in an effort to bring different parts of the region into our scope, into our work, and to facilitate some better familiarization around the idea of what reconciliation means in the United Church and what that looks like as a practice. And to develop into these various communities of faith an identity of how they want to do that. So some churches take on the issues of missing and murdered women. Others take on the issue of the residential school children. And others take on different issues around Treaty 7 and our covenants. And as we work through the year to develop some of this work for the community, it's very much driven by the different right relations groups and their efforts within the community, and how we can all sing from the same songbook around Indigenous ministries, around our work of reconciliation and our commitments as signatories to the Indian Residential School Settlement Agreement. So in these efforts for 2024, on a monthly basis, we are getting out there and doing various types of work that highlight what's going on specifically in our liturgical calendar, but also what coincides with some of the work of our community. So during the month of February, it's Interfaith Harmony Week at the beginning, and so we try to tie in that theme into some of the work that we do, bringing that to some of the observances like Pink Shirt Day and other days within the month that are times of observances, especially cultural and customary observances, like the winter count, the understanding that we can bring a cultural teaching to the people, and that they can then begin to reflect on how that impacts their understanding of the world around them. Similarly, Easter time, we've been able to hold a number of feasts during the year. This past Easter, we did another feast in Morley, a time to reach out to the community, to show them in some tangible way the efforts of the church living in the community, and how that can inspire some more effort around this dialogue of reconciliation, what the people are going through and what they require from a body like the church that wants to be involved in some of the healing that's going on in the community. So for our community in Morley, there's a number of issues that rise up, especially around addictions, overdoses, death of young people, death of elders in our community, illness, especially coming out of COVID. We had this year a number of deaths still again. It seems like there are deaths every week. And that is a continuous thing that we hear in other Indigenous communities as well, whether from missing and murdered women, girls and Two-Spirit people, whether it's from addictions or whether it's from illnesses that are affecting our communities. And so there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of challenge that we are encountering in our communities in this region. And so we take time to reach out to those community members to work with them in things like this, where we are able to, last year for the AGM, bring one of our elders to do a pipe ceremony to open us up in a good way, to open us up with ceremony, to open us up in a way that offers blessing and hope that we will continue on our path of reconciliation. So as we do this work, there's also others that are interested in this work. And those come from the areas of our interfaith community, of our interdenominational relatives in other faiths that have come forward to try to do more reconciliation work. A lot of them don't have a point person, don't have someone that in the community, don't have a connection to the community. And so we build that through our relationship to the point now that we have the, as we were hearing earlier from Joanne, the South Calgary cluster, which also is emerging into other types of clusters that are interdenominational, that are interfaith, so that we are not doing the work alone. We are not solely in charge of the repair of our community, but that we are working in a collective way that is hopeful and inspiring to others, that they can also become part of it, whether or not they belong to a faith community or not, or whether they see this online and some of our other advertisement and other work. These events are all open to them. So that is the community side. We also have a community side for the Indigenous community, particularly in our urban centers, where many are not able to practice their traditions, we're not able to go out to ceremonial places or deal with community logistics, intergenerational family relations and other issues that come up, for things like initiations, for things like blessings, for things like memorials for people we have lost. So it's always been the vision to try to work in this way to be a response to some of that spiritual need in our community. That continues to go on in an ad hoc way, but it is more, I think, receptive to an audience that is moving in that direction from their work and what they've seen of our work in the community. So this continues throughout the year. We have many events that we do, many observances, many workshops and opportunities for people to be able to come out, to be part of the ministry, to be part of the work of the church, and to also see the work of the church in their community doing good things that can help and express that flourishing that we do. This year, with Trina and with the regional representatives, we were able to go on a clergy tour to Guatemala, which was very enlightening. I don't think we've given a presentation on that from my perspective, because I haven't been involved in it. But also, I think there's an important underlying understanding of what reconciliation looks like, not just within our own context, but how we interpret that in other parts of the world, and what that means as people come here, what that means as we work together. And we're going to do it again. So these are important opportunities for people to engage, to think about, to work through. We have a monthly right relations circle that we do that offers people an opportunity to come and listen, to come and share, to come and update on what they're doing. We try to have as much interaction as we can and to encourage the work of various communities. Right now, we have our United Church Circle. We also have the more interdenominational circles that Cecile was talking about yesterday, and working toward these interfaith circles that will become important as we move ahead. This past year, we were able to take an interfaith group out to Mount Iamnaska. Mount Iamnaska is a holy place. It is a holy mountain where God sits in our land. We think often in the Bible, we talk about Holy Land. Here in this space, we also live and inhabit a holy place, a holy land. So we're able to go out and do some ceremony at Iamnaska and Bini Ruin, which is the cave and basin in Banff. The Stoney people have a long-term relationship with the Banff Parks and with some of the facilities in Banff Parks. So we're able to cordon off some space there to have some time and to collect the water, which we'll be bringing in the ceremony that we'll be doing a little bit later, and to reflect on the wisdom and knowledge of our people within these areas. So this last summer, we're able to do during Indigenous History Month, and we will do something similar again, but we have other events that are also happening coincided with that. We try to have observances during the year for Red Dress Day, for events that are happening in our community, that events that we initiate, and also events that are happening in and around us, to try to partner up and to try to maximize our resources into these areas and volunteers. So we're always looking for people to come and join. On this year, we're starting with the Calgary Interfaith Council, a reconciliation circle. They have a monthly Bible study. They have a monthly scripture sharing from different faith traditions. This, because everyone is kind of working within that space of reconciliation, we offer this to those groups that want to come and express or understand what reconciliation means in these different contexts. There's a book that we use called Spirit of Reconciliation. It is an interfaith book. It is telling traditions from the Baha'i, from the Jewish traditions, from the Anglican, Catholic, and United Church traditions. We share some of those stories and talk about what this context means to what we are doing today. Because there's some very interesting examples within this that talk about what is going on in terms of reconciliation outside of our area and on a national level, what this looks like in practice. So that's part of the opportunity that we open up in order to help to facilitate that conversation when some of our own efforts may be smaller, and we need to branch that out and generate interest coming from our various communities of faith, especially those that are resistant to hearing some of this message on a long-term basis, and what we are doing about some of this work in community. This past year and last year, we've been doing Lenten studies that take information on Indigenous perspectives, especially around our Indigenous practices, and bringing that in light of some of the conversations we have. This particular talk I took to the FCJ Center with the Catholic nuns and offered that to the community. Also had different conversation with different schools, Ambrose and Alberta Bible College and other places, to take this message out to the broader community of what Indigenous ministry looks like, what the work that we're doing is involved in. And it gives us a chance to offer that conversation and work through a lot of different issues that are happening in our different faith partners, and what that looks like as they move through, especially those that are in training, those that are being given one perspective. We want to branch that out and open it up to what Indigenous people have experienced here in this land. One of the things that I think is really important is that in our perspective around these messages, we think about some of those Indigenous teachings. And one of the elders that we had brought in talked about the Stoney tradition in our oral tradition. It's one of the very old traditions, talking about there was a figure called Son of God, a follower of God, and that when the missionaries came, bringing that message of Jesus Christ, it very much sounded like what we had already known. And so these type of ways that we enter into some of this dialogue, interreligious dialogues, and what we understand of our experience are very important in that this is the kind of conversation we would have had we had healthy treaty relationships that were ongoing, that did not sort of preclude through discrimination or through other types of erasure, that we could then begin to have a more fulsome understanding of our beliefs and of one another. We also hold on an annual basis the Mother Earth Day. This year we had this at McDougall United Church and online through For the Love of Creation campaign. We also do this with other groups in the national church. It's recognized and put out there, and with our local groups that come and participate to offer prayers, to offer a time of reflection on the environment and our place within it. How important this is for our ministry, that we have very many sacred and important places that are at risk and continue to be at risk. And through the working of this group and others, we are able to voice those to a larger continuum. This year, this is what Cecile wanted me to talk a bit about. The Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner, Marie Wilson, came to Calgary as part of the work of Hillhurst United Church as a speaker. One of the things that we talked about there was how it may be an event for one group, but we might want to branch that out into what this could mean for the entire community. So we had groups, an open invitation to groups coming from the Anglican group, the Lutheran group, from the Unitarian Universalist Church, others that came together with their volunteers, helping us to formulate a couple of days of events and opportunities to hear on some of this work of reconciliation, to bring elders in, to talk to the local Friendship Center, to talk to the local Tsuut'ina First Nation, and inquire about renting spaces, about working with different agencies, the Pokake's Reconciliation Society. So these overtures that went out helped to establish a better rapport in our community, to show what the churches are doing, what religious communities are doing, and how we're thinking about reconciliation. In the end, this oath to become a witness to reconciliation that comes out of Marie Wilson's book was one of these movements. So during that time of her visit, we had a meeting with about 600 people at Mount Royal University who took this oath of reconciliation. And this is something we're going around and continuing to do. It's something that Marie Wilson initiated herself, to become a witness to reconciliation, a witness to the work that we do, and to a continuation of that commitment around the calls to action in the TRC. This instance would have been what we did, but we also added to that, from an Indigenous perspective, a response saying, we hear what you're saying, we will watch what you're saying, very much falling in line with what Elder Edith Memnook from Sad Lake had said in her response to the apology in 1986. The efforts that have been taken to reach out and to make this a living reality, to take this model and understanding to other places across the country, to look at our Witnesses to Reconciliation Facebook group, and to offer that as a tool to other communities, to other cities, where they can be doing this kind of work as well, to reaffirm where they're going, where they've been with their reconciliation work, and to take this oath, to take this understanding, to have a little card at the end and a button, and to feel that they have made a commitment to do something that is quite meaningful to a lot of groups, to a lot of their understanding. So this is part of that work. It is the work of interdenominational and interfaith involvement, and it continues. It is something that moves beyond what is in our particular denomination, what our commitments are, what our budgets are for this or that. It is something that calls us to account in a very visible and very, transparent way of what we are trying to do together. Because we didn't all get here in one place by our own action. A lot of us, this comes from generations ago. But the work that we do today is very important for this type of response, so that we are not merely paying lip service, we are not merely saying the words, but that we are standing in that space of commitment to do the work and asking to be held accountable for that work. So I think that's a very different sort of calculus around where we are at in terms of this overall reconciliation work and what this will look like in the future. Because it's not dependent on any one group or any one budget or any one voice. Oftentimes we get sidelined by those in these meetings and in these other spaces because it's very convenient to sort of say no. But I think the larger influence of groups that are willing to take that chance, that are willing to step outside their comfort zone and to begin to build something together that is more resilient and is more effective in its way of understanding the connections, the conditions that we are in. We see a lot of issues that come up. Danielle Smith and the government on sovereignty is one. The women in the landfill in Winnipeg is another. The different efforts that are going on, Colton Boucher and other instances of atrocities that happen in our land are another. The way that we address that, the way that we come to terms with these issues that we feel a need to respond to is through these collective actions. It's through this work of coming together and speaking out to again find our footing in the politics of our time. How important that is for the work that we do. So today, next week on May 15th, we'll have a gathering communities coming together. The trafficking group, the group that works on domestic violence in the city, different speakers and different performers that will come together. This is an opportunity for the community to respond, and it falls in line with some of the marches that are going on and some of the other events that are going on at Central United Church, where they have a large contingent of Indigenous population that come in need of food, that come in need of guidance, that come in need of support. And so to be able to focus this work at a very opportune time in a population that really needs it is important. How we respond to our community, how we understand what's going on in our community is very important. And how this work transcends what any one group can do. We again open this up to all types of groups to be part, to open our ways, to know that through faith we are building something that is bigger than ourselves. This year, I'm going to be traveling to the US, God help me, to go to this Vine Deloria Symposium that's happening May 22nd, 23rd. It is the last conference that my father went to. And at this conference, he gave a paper on Vine Deloria's latest book called The World We Used to Live In, Upholding Our Duty to Past and Future Generations in the Fight for Indigenous Sovereignty. And he gave some perspectives there on some of our Indigenous traditional beliefs. And so we've been asked by the symposium to come and to present on the continuation of that work. And I think it's very effective now that we've done this work here in community, that we have continued in this line to work towards ordination, to work towards this validation of voices and perspectives, and to bridge that with what we have learned growing up from our people, growing up and understanding from our communities. Very important part of our work and tradition. Also in June, we'll have the Jubilee group. The Jubilee group was the one that actually formed Kairos. And so the Jubilee group is an international group that formed in 2000 for the G7 at that time. That was also held in Kananaskis. And the work that we do, the work that we are trying to bring forward again today for June, is this work around debt forgiveness, which was very effective back in 2000, is needed again at this time. The role of the church is important, the role of denominations and the voice of religious communities is imperative to finding our moral center, to expressing that heart in our community, and what this means to our larger project of fair and equal societies. And it is something that I think the church is uniquely suited to. So I'm very happy to be part of that planning, and we'll be doing an event out in Morley at the Medicine Wheel to have an interfaith prayer service on June 14th in the afternoon. Everyone is invited to come. It is an outside again of
the afternoon, because if we do our theme time now,
I don't know why I love you like I do, but I do, Lord, I do.
All right. Is the 10 minutes up? Yeah. Okay. Oh. The, hello, beautiful people. Hello. Hello, beautifuls. The moderator said, you know, it was 2 minutes ago, Karen, come on. I know. I heard. Typical O1, making a mess. So before Carmen and Carmen, it's very hard. Carmen and Cameron. It's a tongue twister. Before Cameron and Carmen return for this session, I always have the pleasure of hosting the dinner on Saturday nights. And so you should have gotten some instructions from Shelley. So I hope you all brought something fabulous to wear from one of the decades of the existence of the church, so 1925 and onwards. But I have some instructions for you in order to make things go smoothly in our transition between the end of the meeting and dinner tonight. So when we are finished the session, we are going to ask you to remove all of your personal items from the tables. If you have glasses and cups or garbage, we would ask you to dispose of that because we're going to eat in these tables tonight so that we can use the podium, okay? So we're gonna ask you to take all of your personal things away with you, okay? If there is unused or unclaimed books and jam, just leave them there. The youth council and myself are gonna clean up and set up some places for you. I will also let you know that we're going to set up 2 photo booths of yourselves and your
30 different countries across the world, and these were the things that were universal regardless of culture. And each of them constitutes an end in and of itself. And there's a questionnaire that folks can complete where they can actually measure the outcomes of these 5 domains across the 4 situations you see on the left. So how do each of those 5 concepts show up in your family, in your work, in your education, and in your religious community? In the winter of 2022, I participated in a forum called Humanity 2.0 at Vatican City. And one of the things that 70 of us from across the world were discussing was, does this particular model work in terms of measuring human flourishing? And one of the things that we realized is that it's helpful in a business or an organizational context for us to measure our individual flourishing within an ecosystem, but this doesn't really measure our collective flourishing, right? So lots of HR departments, especially in the US and in transnational corporations, have worked with Harvard to now implement this 14-point quiz that Dr. Vanderwild developed to measure the flourishing of their individual people, but it doesn't measure our overall wellness. And so Roman Catholic priest and theologian Ezra Sullivan at Angelicum in the Vatican developed this pyramid model. And so he tried to take the outcomes that Dr. Vanderwiel had named in the model of measure of human flourishing, but to present it in a way that showed both the individual good and the common good. And it's based loosely on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, with 0 acknowledgement of the role that the Blackfoot here in Alberta played in influencing Maslow's thought, or the way that that work showed up in the world without credit to the Blackfoot. But I made sure that they knew that that's where it came from. But the main critiques of this model that came out of our discussions in 2022 were twofold. One, it kind of presumes a hierarchy, because it was built on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that you need to build on each of the preceding levels before you can move up the pyramid, but that's not really how life works. Many of us need spiritual maturity and connection before we can work at some of the rest. The other is that it seemed too static, it doesn't really represent the fluidity and dynamic nature of human life or our social lives. And so the other thing was, in Ezra's model, he only had church and the common good top of the pinnacle. He didn't, I added religion in there. And so there wasn't really an acknowledgement. It was shocking being at the Vatican. It was a very Christocentric model. So one of the participants who was there was the sustainability director for IEEE, which, if any electrical engineers in the room, yes, it's the International Association of Electrical Engineers. And John had actually studied to be a United Methodist pastor, and is just one of the most lovely humans. But he was like, why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? There's already this other model developed by Kate Rayworth. And spoiler alert, if you've been in the Mods Book Club, you may have read the book that goes along with this. But how many of you took economics in either high school or your undergrad and remember the model of the economic machine, right? It was like a little diagram of a machine, and you put money in, and then it goes around through the machinations of the economy, and then widgets and more money come out. Right? And this model is 100 years old. And that model is where the term externalities came from, because when you're looking at the intangible impacts on people or the planet of the functions of the economy, they can't be internalized in the machine, because they would gum up the machine. There's no math to create those equations, and so they were externalized from the machine. And there was a young British economist named Kate Rayworth, and she was like, this is terrible. After 100 years, we know that the economy has impacts on people and the planet. Surely we can come up with a better model. And so she came up with the donut model, which is terribly named, but also really effective. So in the donut model, she says there are 2 concentric circles. The inside circle, which is our social foundations, and then the external circle, which you can see in the dark green, which is our ecological ceiling, or what she calls our planetary boundaries. And so she says, instead of just looking at economics from the perspective of math equations, we tried to make the management of the oikos, of God's household, into math equations, and it doesn't work like that. We could actually use the Sustainable Development Goals, which we already know how to measure, to look at how we uphold the social foundations, the social contracts that we enter into with each other, and also to look at how we live within our planetary boundaries. And so in this particular model that's in your workbooks and on the screen, you can see where all of the red parts, like jutting in, are where we have shortfalls globally in those social foundations, and where you see biodiversity loss, land conversion, the impact of fertilizer on the soil, and climate change, where those red parts are jutting out, that's where we've already exceeded our planetary boundaries in areas that we can measure. And so she says that if we look at the ways that we're failing our social contracts with each other and we're exceeding our planetary boundaries, we can make more informed and discerning decisions about how our economy should work. And so the green part, the light green part in the center, like what would be the cake part of the donut, she calls the just and safe space for humans. And that our goal when we're making economic decisions is that we should try to be aiming to live in the delicious cake part of the donut. And so she argues that donut economics is an economic mindset that's fit for our times in the 21st century. It's not a set of policies and institutions, but rather a way of thinking to bring about more regenerative and distributive economic models that would include ecological, feminist, institutional, and behavioral and complexity economic models. And in her book, she sets out 7 ways to think like a 21st century economist in order to transform our economies from the local to the global. And even if you're not the type of special academic nerdy type person who geeks out on macroeconomics for fun, because Kate Rayworth is not the only economist that I read, her book, I think, is written for a general audience, and also the resources on her website, donuteconomics.org, are really, really excellent. So I really love this model, and I think John was right because it's also not hierarchical, and you can imagine sort of cycling through all of these different pieces in terms of how we can anticipate our impact on the economy. So I'm going to turn it over to Cam.
So those are some ideas of flourishing, and where we're really intrigued is to hear from you and for you to have an opportunity to think about what does flourishing mean for me. We've also heard many places throughout the weekend where we've heard visions of flourishing at particular communities theologically in our scriptures as well. On page 10 and 11, there's an opportunity for you to think about what flourishing means in your life, whether at the self level, the community level, and the world level. And we've heard these 3 different models, and you can move back and forth. And we're going to take some time in table groups, first to reflect individually, and then have some conversation. So we're going to take some time to reflect individually on the questions on page 10, and then have a conversation within your group around the conversations in page 11. How might flourishing help be productive, become inspired action, inspire bold connections, create belonging, and create a sense of purpose, which you might remember from the first day are also what we talk about hope being productive when it does these things. I think we're just going to check in on the time. How do you want to do that time?
So we're going to take 15 minutes total, but just take like the first 90 seconds, 2 minutes to just think for yourself, and then when you feel ready and your table feels ready, you can just enter into table group conversation. So 15 minutes total.
ending the day to keep the campfire and good year and good friends. Good friends. And then what does it look like to really get to the flourishing? I'm like, also they love to be active and love the neighborhood. I think this could be like laughter. So what do you envision in the communities that you were part of in It's very similar to what we're like already. Actually doing less and having more actually doing less. Very close to flourishing. Because we're so actively involved in the neighborhood. Yeah, but we're doing too much. Yeah, we're right there. Well, when I arrived, I was I had less sleep. So I looked at my watch, and I had like 8.5 hours. The rest of the nights are like 5.5 hours. And I just leave those watches and they talk to me. Yeah, because I know I'm awake and then no, I think it's the other way around. I know it was sleep and it says that I'm awake. I'm like, I wasn't awake. It's not like you have to every. They don't have one of those watches. Like they're always telling you like 6 hours and 23 minutes. And but then it says that I'm awake for 40 minutes of that. And just every time you kind of come to. Like, you know, you used to come to like sleep counteract. So it's saying that I was awake for 1 minute. You get like 7.5. You get 8 hours of sleep. Oh, what's the top? How long I was in bed for and how Where'd you go?
You have 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. All right. So now that you've spent just a little bit of time, and just a caveat for this afternoon, if you're finding the questions like are engaging and you want to spend more time in them, like you're going to take this workbook home and you can redo the solo work and work through the workbook like a journal, because this afternoon might feel a little bit speedy. But now that you spend some time thinking about how you define flourishing and thinking about what that looks like for you, whether it's at the individual level, the community of faith level, or a wider society, we want to give you some time to think about the future. So marrying what we did over the last couple of days with this idea of what is flourishing. In Imaginable, Jane McGonigal says that we often fall prey to a trap when we think about the future. If you're an optimistic person, I didn't mean to do that. If you're an optimistic person, then you're always trying to hope for the best. And if you're a pessimistic person, or somebody who, like some people call themselves realists, you're often tending to prepare for the worst. But exactly never do things always work out the way that we imagined, whatever we imagine, right? Exactly never. So, but one of the things that happens if we only hope for the best, then you're in a place of unimaginable or unthinkable when the worst happens. And vice versa, if you're only prepared for the worst and then the best happens, you can sometimes stay stuck in a place of like disbelief or just always waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Like not trusting that the good is actually there in front of you. So McGonigal asks us to flex our imagination muscles and to do both. She says that we can't only imagine the very best and the very worst. We can't only imagine the very best or the very worst. We have to imagine and prepare for both. Like I said yesterday, the 2 most important questions she asks are, what are the things that I can do today that I would be proud of, that will help me to prepare for the world that I want to see happen? And what are the things that I can do today that I would be proud of that will help me to mitigate against the future that I don't want to see? So we're going to get at it. You're going to spend the next 15 minutes. Oh, wait, no, what am I doing? Missing what? That was the last slide. My slides don't match where I am in my brain. Here we go. We're going to spend the next 15 minutes with you doing some, again, 2 minutes of silent starting reflection, and then you can move into discussion in your table groups, thinking about what is the absolute best flourishing self, church, or world that you want to see happen? What does it look like? What's dramatically different from today? How do things work now? How is life improved by the change? For whom? How does it feel in this new future? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? What's the biggest positive change that this could lead to? And how is your own life better? Be as detailed and descriptive as possible. So imagine you're 10 years in the future and you're imagining the best possible future that you can, whether you're thinking about yourself, your community of faith, or the wider church or the wider society. So, pardon? Best possible future. Don't think about anything bad, just only the best possible future. All right? So you have 15 minutes starting now.
Yeah. salary levels where they are, which knowing like friends who work for like InterVarsity where they were like salary, I'm like, we're not. I remember we were listening to St. Andrew's once when I was at Knoxville, and we were talking about saying that having access to it when I was at Knoxville, I felt it was important enough that I would now, in an interview for a future position, say, if I'm going to be your minister here, like, I am going to have access to this. And if not, I am. And I told him, like, both A, I don't think I can do my job, or I don't think I can do what I need to do as a minister, I don't have it. And B, if they won't let me have that, what other weird thing I'm suddenly going to have that I'm not this is Chinook. Could you please wait until the week after Easter to remind those of us who are really, really struggling that we're doing it without qualification and still some hostage. I never felt the need to actually say that. Imagine if it was oh, complain about us after Christmas. I will. Would have had a good nap in January. I will be in a better space to see this. That makes me think of what we were all talking about. We're worried and talking about Jesus. I think people that's they will not because we might have some feelings about this. I think we're back on track. Yeah, we're 15 minutes for Chinook picture. 10, 15.
We have about a minute and a half left.
Did you watch The Last of Us? No idea. Super good to talk to it's still like find the podcast when Jordan was on. They did a podcast about a bunch of authors. And they go through like that. And one of the things was what I think she has this like beautiful like zombies are like those who are living in the thing that keeps us alive. So I was just and like this is beautiful and like the person who's just oh wow, I was just going to say oh no, no. This is like a lovely story.
All right, friends. I'm going to call your attention back to the front of the room. And I hope that it was fruitful to live in this best case scenario utopian future 10 years into the future. And now, because exactly never do things always turn out the way that we expected them, we are going to go into the dystopian future. We're going to spend the next 15 minutes imagining the world where you're 10 years into the future and the worst imaginable dystopian future has happened. I want you to go dark, like The Last of Us, Book of Eli, like Elysium, whatever your dystopian fantasy of choice is, like go really deep and dark. So you're gonna imagine you're 10 years into the future. What are the risks? What could go wrong and for whom? What are the new challenges? What's the biggest negative outcome it could lead to? So you're going to spend the next 15 minutes, just take a couple minutes on your own, and then you'll have the remainder of the 15 minutes to talk about it as a small group. So go dark, people, like Good Friday dark. And also there's space to write about it on page 14 and 15 of your workbooks, in the next page. You have 2 more minutes. All right, friends. In just a minute, we're going to ask you if you have anything you want to share about your flourishing future or your worst dystopian dumpster fire hellscape to come to the mics. But first, I will tell you a story. When I was doing my PhD in Berkeley, we were living in Oakland, and I had a plan. I was going to be in and out of my PhD program in 4 years, and then I met my husband, and then we had 2 babies, and so that timeline got doubled. But the thing that happens when you have 2 small babies under 3 happened to me while I was in school and working full-time, which is that there were mountains of laundry, just mountains of laundry. And so I'd get home from work and I'd throw wash in the washer and then put it in the dryer, and then by the time we'd like all eaten, the kids had been bathed, put to bed, a couple hours later, I'd be exhausted, would be my time to chill and watch TV. And so I'd dump all the clean, dry laundry onto the sofa, and I would start folding laundry. And the show that I used to watch on the National Geographic Channel was called Doomsday Preppers. Has anybody ever seen this show? Yeah. Right, so these are people who are preparing for the end of the world, and it could be the climate apocalypse, it could be a zombie apocalypse, it could be a global pandemic, it could be, a breakout of civil war, because they're mostly Americans. But these are people who are like arming themselves to the hilt and building bunkers in their backyard, or living in downtown Manhattan, and they have these bug-out bags, which is just like a slip. People are a little cuckoo. It was reality TV, and it was entertaining, and it was, didn't require a lot of thinking. So this is what I would watch when I'd be folding my clothes, and I'm sitting there folding the kids' clothes, and I think, well, it's probably when, and this is a little bit less of a funny story now, given what's happening with the American administration, but I would sit there and I'd think, Canada has so many more resources than the United States. And one day, what if they invaded us? And it would take, the 90% of Canadians that live within 100 miles of the border, we're hooped. But my mom is in the Heiltsuk territory, we call it the Heiltsuk breadbasket, because there's so much there's so many ways that we can live off of our traditional seafood and seaweed, and we're relearning about how, what kinds of traditional tubers that we ate that were not like potatoes like we eat now, but roots and berries and things. And so if we can spend enough time in the Central Coast that I can teach my kids like traditional subsistence living in the Central Coast. Pete Rowand, my oldest friend from elementary school, has a sailboat. And he's teaching his girls to sail. So if my kids have bug out bags and they can just make it to the Olympic Peninsula from Northern California, then Pete's girls can sail down from Victoria, pick them up in Nia Bay, and then they can get the heck out of Dodge because it's going to take quite some time before that military conflict of the Americans invading us gets up to Bella Bella. And I probably should stop watching this show. But then the funny thing was, I told this story to Pete, and he said, do you know why we have the Canada Grey, our family sailboat? And I said, no. And he said, because during the Cold War, my dad was so terrified of nuclear winter, and he thought, nobody's going to bomb Australia. So if I can get my wife and my youngest son, he was remarried, and Pete was the only kid from his second marriage, and the older kids were grown up and moved out. But he's like, if I can get Sheila and Pete onto the boat and we can sail to Australia, we're not going to be dependent on fossil fuels and like all the war is going to be happening on the landmass, and we just hang out in the middle of the Pacific and then get to Australia and we could be safe. And he's like, you didn't know this, but the house that I grew up in, the walls were lined with bars of silver and gold because my dad was so terrified of what would happen. And so that's a really good dream that you had about the Canada Drake, because that's exactly why we own that boat, is to get the hell out of Dodge if like the worst case scenario happens. So what came up for you in your conversations? Did you go as deep and as dark as me? All right, I see somebody here. And Alan, you'll moderate the folks online for me? Yeah, so if folks online want to join, then just raise your virtual hand and then Alan will patch you in for us. Okay. I think maybe you have to turn it on. You have to hold it until the light goes on. There you go.
Charlie, St. Paul's United Church, Troshu. I never watch Doomsday Preppers. I've heard about them. But my darkest mind goes to nuclear oblivion, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Any other best case scenarios or worst case scenarios folks want to share?
My name is Mark from St. Andrew's United Church. You're raising the concern of the U.S. invading us. I heard a good line on, I think it's the Daily Show. It says, they can't invade us. Because they're all taught through the American school system. They won't be able to find us on a map.
Ouch. So Taylor first, and then this other mic. So first Taylor.
Taylor Strong, Southminster, Lethbridge. Mine is inspired by the video game series Fallout, if anyone's played that.
Yes. Somebody behind you has.
Okay, we'll team it then. So in the future, a nuclear war between a multipolar world, or even a now conscious singularity AI, has resulted in ecological collapse and mass starvation due to the resulting climate change. Loss of government order has resulted in gangs and warlordism. Elsewhere, experiences of authoritarianism and fascism has resulted in a systemic genocide of marginalized groups. Dogs are no longer friendly to human beings.
Oh, you had to throw in the dogs. Okay, this microphone over here. I'm gonna take the 4 people I see at the microphones, and then we're gonna move on.
Okay, as the elder of our group, I did my very, very best, but I have to confess that I am a failure. I could not get my table to talk about anything but positive solutions to bad stuff. So I don't know where to go from that. I just have to confess that I'm a failure.
How fabulous.
Leila Curry from Gates United Church. And we talked about when there's no water. What water there is would be toxic and non-usable, and that there would be no water. And so, we talked about how our glaciers are melting, and so and our lakes are getting smaller. So anyway, that was one of the things that came up, and the growing individualism that we're already seeing, and how that it would play out in however long.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So
it's
take
sad.
this microphone and then that microphone.
So I did watch Doomsday Preppers. I don't know if you remember the episode where the guy said it was in 2018, where the guy was prepping for a global pandemic. And he said in 2 years' time from 2018, there's going to be a pandemic.
Wow.
How did you predict? I just want to know how he predicted that. But our table group that I'm with, wherever they are, right there. We mainly talked a bit of both about positives and negatives, but I'm kind of with Taylor Croissant. We're going to turn into Fallout New Vegas. If our leaders don't step up, and if Trump is not Homer Simpson and press the nuclear meltdown button, that's kind of what I don't want to have happen.
Yeah, super. Okay, last two speakers, this microphone and then that microphone.
Okay, I'm Susan from Pincher Creek, and this was a dream I had just recently when things were looking very, very bad. The bottom was falling out of the markets and everybody was going crazy, including myself. And I'm dead because the tanks, I had a dream, I woke up, the tanks had come in. We're very, very close to the border in Pincher Creek, so I'm sure there's an army base really close. The tanks had come into Pincher Creek. There are 3 seniors' homes in Pincher Creek. I live in one of the 3 seniors' homes. They're not going to want to worry about old folks. They're just going to kill us, so I'm already dead. And my sister-in-law, when I told her that, she's 2 years older than me, in her 70s, but she still has her own home. And she said, "Yeah, it's not what's going to happen. There's so many guns in this town. I'm going to get a gun and I'm going to start shooting." So there you go.
Susan, I think you win the Dystopian of the Day award. All right, last comment.
Dave Holmes, St. Andrews, Lacombe. We need a positive one, I think. And I imagine, what if Alberta stopped whining and committed ourselves to environmental sustainability and healthy community instead of whatever it is we're committed to now? What if we took emissions caps not as some horrible conspiracy against us, but actually as a challenge, and embraced it, and embraced water conserving farming, and took these things as legitimate challenges and actually worked together.
Yeah, interesting story. Yes, first of all, yes, to your vision. My cousin also worked in environmental nonprofits, and then started a human-controlled AI tech company that does insights at the depth of focus groups, but the scale of polling. And they were hired by Alberta when Rachel Notley was premier to study, do opinion polling about what would it take for Albertans to change to exactly that. And mapping out what are the values that are held in Alberta. And the number one value was loyalty. And so critiquing big oil is perceived by most Albertans as being disloyal. And so the challenge for Albertans is to figure out, how do you build loyalty to something other than the oil and gas industry? Thank you. Yeah. So if you can tap into people building a sense of loyalty to community or to the future or something other than oil, then that's sort of like the cipher that you need to be able to build bridges across political spectrums and stuff. And I don't we're pretty polarized as a society, and especially in this province. But one of my things that I'm committed to and that I hope for is that for those of us who are able to, can step forward and to try to build bridges and to reduce polarization and to build community even when we disagree and dissent from each other. And that doesn't mean asking people to put themselves in unsafe situations. It means being strategic about who can be the bridge builders in a situation. So, I'm not going to ask racialized people to go and talk with white supremacists, right? But if there are people who maybe are on the fringes of that community that using Bowen family systems or whatever to be like, the conflict is not that, like it's actually some deeper pain. And how can we as people of faith build bridges to address the pain of our neighbors and to address the perceived threat to our social status or the perceived threat to our value of loyalty in a way that can actually start to build community in places that seem impossible today. Yeah. Okay, one more, and then we're gonna switch to Kemp. I did.
Well, in answer to what you have said and what the gentleman just said, Betty Bennett from Sundre, Alberta, right in the heart of oil company. I agree that it's very touchy subject to say anything. My son works in the oil and gas, so for Saudi Arabia, a company owned by Saudi Arabia, which I was quite shocked when he told me that. Nonetheless, in Sundre, Alberta, there's a company called Clear Rush Inc., and they are building, through their own technology, it's this big square box, and it's emission control, and they are doing very well for themselves. And so there's ingenuity in Alberta. Albertans have it. They know what to do. The pressure came from, of course, the cap on carbon. So, when push comes to shove, people can step up. And Sundre was doing it. Thank you.
Super.
We're going to invite you to look at page 16. And this is going to be the final exercise. And when we close after this, the moderator is going to explain the rest of the things that you might wish to pick up and do with the book. On page 16, there is blue sky thinking. And had this been the full day workshop where we would have gone from here is to take an aspect of the flourishing future that you and your table want to name as something that you're committed to, that you want to workshop, looking at creating a concrete plan towards, or perhaps something in the shadow future that you want to mitigate against. Perhaps there's a strategy right now that we can do for the dogs and humans no longer being friends. We all start stockpiling dog biscuits. Who knows? We start workshopping this together. Is my point. What we're going to invite you to do as your last group activity in this time, and I think that there's some group time in closing worship as well, is we're going to invite you to think about one aspect of your flourishing future, and to think about what are some concrete things that you might be able to do. And in the blue sky thinking, the idea similar to the sort of skills that we were thinking about with the shoe activity, the turning the church upside down, is to work at our capacity to ideate multiple possibilities, to come up with as many things as possible, whether it's to address polarity in our communities. Things like this, to choose one of the things around your table that you're really excited about and to work for 10 minutes on how many ideas can we come up with. We can use some of the guidelines we've been using so far, be a little bit ridiculous at first when something comes up rather than, oh no, that wouldn't work, but like, yes, and then we can do this. Feel free to ask ourselves, what if? If we were to think about an ideal world we could possibly, what some of the things that we could think about just for fun, or how might we look at it in different ways? We're going to do this for 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back together to close this part of the book. Here we go.
All right, friends, we are almost out of time. And so that will be the last table group time that you have for theme time. But I want to walk you through the rest of the workbook so you know what else is here for you. One of the most important ways for us to take tangible action is to create goals. You heard me say, no, I think Cam said yesterday that I said that we're more productive when we're working towards a goal than trying to solve a problem. It wasn't me that said that. It was Mariana Mazzucato, who's an Italian economist that teaches at the University City of London. No, City University of London. Anyway, so page 18 and page 19 is about really fleshing out of a goal. So if you have like one nugget on your brainstorm of things that you can do to help to create the future that you want to see, then you can pick one and you write it at the top of page 18 and write your goal here. I wrote an example. Who knows what a SMART goal is? So it's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound, right? So my example is if I was still like climate nonprofit me. It's December of 2025. I have worked with my colleagues to create a new national network of communities of faith committed to our national commitment to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by the year 2030. We have met 12 times over the past year, established community norms, developed a framework for tracking and reporting baseline and reduced greenhouse gas emissions, and created a steering group to plan our first national event to take place in conjunction with General Council 46 in 2028. So that's an example of a goal I came up with that is a SMART goal. And notice how I stated it as if it's in the past tense. These are the things I will have done. They will be completed at the end of 2025. And so we also know through brain science and psychology and sociology that we are more likely to achieve a goal if we understand why we're doing it, right? It's an entirely different thing to say, I want to lose 25 pounds, and you could probably do that and work hard at it. But if you want to lose 25 pounds so you can continue to play with your grandchildren and live a long life, that wide to the goal that you set. And so page 18 is about working at defining the why of the goal you want to set for the thing that you want to do to take action on the future you want to see. Page 19 is around beginning at the end. So that's how you get to the, okay, at the end of 1 year or at the end of 3 years, this is what I want to do. So what are the milestones that need to happen between now and then? And I love the questions at the bottom. How will you need to feel in order to accomplish these milestones? And what will you need to think in order to feel that way? We now know that our feelings and our thoughts are very, they don't actually know which occurs first, if it's a feeling or a thought. But sometimes we can change our thinking. And actually, there's a really good podcast about this in the Bloom Your Mind podcast that's listed at the end. I think it's the one that's entitled The Model, around how we can change our thinking to reframe our circumstances, to take the judgment, and especially our self-judgment out of a situation, so that we can actually feel motivated to make tangible the things we want to have happen in the world, and then practice this thought every day. So, for example, at a previous point in my life, I was working on better financial management, something I talked to Alan about, and the thing I kept telling myself every day is, I don't have to be perfect to change my relationship to money. Right? That was really important for me to say that, because I was learning and I was making mistakes and I was trying something new. Page 20 and 21 are getting into actions. So listing all the action steps that you would need to take in between each of the milestones you articulated on page 19. Who are the people that you'd need to bring to the table? What deliverables do you need to create? What do you need to learn? Once you've listed all of your actions, create a due-by date for each one, and then see at the bottom of page 21, it says, now plug these into your calendar. And again, a practice I've started doing as a result of working closely again with Marie and Maggie is I write things in my calendar in the past tense. So next Wednesday, I have a block on my calendar that says, we'll have completed the comprehensive review survey, right? I will have completed it by the end of that hour. So that's page 21 and 20 and 21. Then page 22 and 23 is around anticipating obstacles and coming up with strategies for how we might address those obstacles. This goes back to Cam's story about tracking. So if you have a goal and you've said a year from now, this is the thing that I want to have happen, and what if I need to bring XYZ number of people to the table to work on this with me, and what happens if those people don't get bought in? What happens if they don't want to work with me? If we can anticipate potential obstacles, we can also come up with strategies to overcome those obstacles. Who else might I have to loop in to get people on board with me? What's the thing that's important to them that I can appeal to if they say no the first time? Trina did this when she was asking me if I'd let my name stand for moderator. Because I said no 3 times, and she came up with strategies to overcome the obstacles I put in her place. Then pages 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28 are around, they're what we call retros. So taking time to do some intentional reflection on the different iterations of your work as you're working towards this goal. So what can you celebrate? And then how can you evaluate, how was my first attempt? What worked? What do I know? What didn't work? Where was I above the line? Where was I below the line? Whose input do I want? What will I do differently next time? Anything else? So for an example of how that works, oh, I'm just throwing stuff all over the place. One of the things I'm currently working on in 2025 is improving my sleep schedule, because as Trina mentioned in my informal having dessert at dinner disrupts my ability to fall asleep, and then what I'll do differently. And so I answered all these questions for myself, and I actually told them to my coaching group to hold myself accountable for the things that I was learning about my goal to get more rest. So that's what we're inviting you to do in the different iterations. Then there's the big thinking space. Sleep is hard. Thank you, perimenopause. And, parenting and working and doing your PhD at the same time. So then the last few pages after the big thinking space, there's a list of resources that are available to you. First and foremost, the growth animation team and their email addresses and who works in what regions. So Scott Reynolds works in your region. There he is over there, and Cam. But also the other growth animators are listed there. Cam's also been ordained since we developed this workbook, so he's also the Reverend. There are other organizations that are doing work specifically with churches around flourishing. There's also a flourishing theologies group at Acadia University in Wolfville, Nova Scotia, that Cam's now tapped into, that the growth animators know about. There's a flourishing in ministry study at Notre Dame University, which the United Church participated in. The Flourishing Congregations Institute at Ambrose University here in Calgary, in Southern Alberta. And then Danielle Ayana James, who is a United Church minister that now works in management consulting, but is doing a lot of coaching with both ministry personnel and congregations. And then Cameron Trimble, who you know has been one of your former theme speakers. There's some AV resources, the Bloom Your Mind podcast that Cam is a big fan of, and so am I. There's a QR code, and then also the name of the video we watched of Above and Below the Line, so you can just go on YouTube and search for that if you are not looking for it on your phone or tablet. And then I think I mentioned it yesterday, there's a great series on Netflix called The Future Of, that I think has 6 episodes and is futurist, talking about really fascinating things, and I love it so much. And then the last is think tanks, conferences, and groups. And then on the next page, there's a list of books, some of which we've referenced in our talks over the last couple of days. Some are United Church writers who are writing specifically about their vision for thriving and healthy churches, and I would add John Pentland's book, Fishing Tips, to that list. It wasn't on there when we published the workbook. And then if there's somebody at your table group who's not from your community or your community of faith that you really have enjoyed your conversations about flourishing with, there is space for you to write accountability partners. So if you want to check in and you need to get their information and just write down how, like, when are we going to connect again about flourishing, and what are we going to talk about, what community or faith are you from, there's space there to make sure you get the contact info for folks that you have enjoyed working with. And so that is all I have to say about that, other than thank you. This was our last flourishing workshop, and it's been such a deep privilege to do this work alongside the church. And I won't be moderator anymore 3 months from tomorrow, but not that I'm counting. But I do love the church, and I will be available as a resource through the faculty at Emmanuel College. I have a website at carmenlansdowne.com, and if you want to talk to me in addition to the growth animation team, I'm always available by email at carmenlansdowne.com. And thank you to Trina and to the executive of Chinook Winds for inviting us to come and be your theme speakers, so that we could make sure we got a good number of people thinking about this in your region. So, Wallace Gaescha.
Carmen, just thank you so much for your service to the church over the last 3 years. It's been inspirational, and we appreciate so much your spirit and love and how you approach all this future. Thank you. And so we're going to go with some gratitudes. Now, we're not going to clap for everybody. We're going to clap for everybody, but not, individually. I'll do a group of people, and then we'll do a woo woo and a clap and move on to the next. And the first one was for our keynote speaker, Carmen, and for Cameron Fraser. We'll clap, woo woo. Okay, that's how we do it. Woo woo and clap. All right, theme and worship. Thank you to Karen Holmes for saying yes to chairing this. There was some contemplation that she went through before she said yes, but she did, and thank you so much for that. The team includes Robin King, Marco Saint-Marie, Eva Beardeman, Nancy Chagas, Mian Kim. Staff support was Shelley Denhan, and all the different worship leaders that have brought worship to us this week. So we say, woo woo! Thanks to the business team. David Pollard chaired that, and the agenda and planning, he chaired that. Kathy Yamisha, she was on that. Owang Kwong, Mauricio Arujo, and I sat on that as well. And Trina, of course, was on that. So for the business team, even without business, it was great. Woo, woo! Local arrangements teams, the congregation of St. Andrews was amazing, and we're grateful for that. Thanks to David Holmes, thanks to Jana in the office, also Alan Buckingham, who was doing local arrangements here, particularly with this center, audiovisual, and all those other things. For them, we say, woo, woo! For the First Third team that provided support for youth and children, Pamela Evans, Chris Mapoy, Jess Andrews, Baz Skinner, Lisa Penzo. Helping with the children's program was Mackenzie Reed and Kendra Baxter. We're grateful for them. Woo, woo! The music team, which has been so great. Some songs I haven't sung in a while, and I'm like, where do I find that again? By the way, I had a request from someone in my congregation for you people to put together just a list. It's done. And is it going to be sent to all of us? It will be sent to all of us. Thank you so much for doing that and for being here. Mark Green, Barb Myers, Cheryl Dennett. Woo, woo! Thanks to the GC 45 planners who are here and have a lot of work to do between now and August. Taylor Croissant, Sue Broderick for their work on our behalf. Woo, woo! For the staff, there is huge organizational work, and it takes you away from family commitments. Jess Beckerly is so much behind the scenes, she wasn't able to be here, but we want to remember her. Mauricio Arujo, lots of behind the scenes work there, booked hotel rooms, found caterers, did all kinds of different things. Grateful for him. For Shelley, working with the theme, doing communications, making sure there's logos and all kinds of things that happen. We're grateful for that. Karen Medlin, she's here filling in. This is her other duties as required part of her job description. It's great to have her. Joel Denhan, even in this difficult time, he was here and in conversations. We appreciate that. The accounting team, Leanne Templeton, for archives. I gave her 4 boxes today, so that was good. Tony Snow, thanks for his keeping us always remembering that we're treaty people. Michelle Slater, who was our online host, and all you people online, sometimes we forget you're there, but you're very important to us. And she also, Michelle, did a pre-event thing for clergy. We're so grateful for that. And of course, nothing happens without Trina somewhere in the mix. She has been she is the most hardworking person, the most organized person. Let me tell you, if I didn't have her in my ear, none of this would happen. So we are so grateful for the staff that we have in Chinook. When I saw them all standing up there, I was like, oh my goodness, we are blessed, aren't we? So a double, woo, 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 woo. And again, the staff from the National Church that works on our behalf, Scott Reynolds, Carrie Copeman-Haynes, Charlene Burns, Vicki Nelson, thank you for being with us in this group and for journeying with us in this region. We appreciate it. Woo, woo! I think that's it for the, celebration of ministry happens tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Hope you can all be there. We'll be celebrating, bringing 2 commissionings, 2 ordinations. Please do come. Those of you who ordered bag lunches, they'll be available after the service for you to have before you go home, but you have to have ordered them. So if you did not, don't take someone else's, because they did that. Tonight's the evening centennial celebration, and we're celebrating 100 years of the United Church. That's an amazing thing. And the last thing I wanted to say was actually when Barbara was up, Davidson was up talking about the UCW and saying our grace. Now, did I get this wrong? You've been 70 years in UCW, is that right? 1973. Okay, not quite 7 years, but still a long time, because I was born in 1962 and I am 63 years old, so it must be like 50 years, right? 50 years with UCW, and she's stepping down as the leader, right? So I just think we should give her a whoop whoop and a thank you too for the work that she's done on behalf of UCW in this region for those years. Woo, woo! We are so grateful for the worship team, and we're going to call them to lead us in our closing worship.
One more person. I don't think this was Joanne's first choice in ministry to serve as our presiding officer for the last 3 years. We've sure been blessed. Thanks, Joanne.
I'll do what my mother often does. I'll issue a blanket apology for all the things that I've said over the last 3 years that have offended people, because inevitably it happens when you think before you speak. So thank you for your grace.
Excuse me, folks, just to let you know what's going on, we're a couple minutes delayed for worship, but we're going to invite you, if you wouldn't mind, just taking this time to clean off your tables to get ready for the banquet, and we'll be starting worship, our closing worship, in about 5 minutes, 7 minutes, something like that.
So we don't have to do anything.
Little meerkat in the ad. Ellen! So there's been some questions about the center. We want you to take your own stuff and take the garbage off of your tables. Leave the centerpieces. Leave the centerpieces and leave the runners. I want the runners on the table and just leave the centerpieces. We're going to pick them up as we change the room over. Okay? No, don't give it. We've got a plan. And we want the runners on the tables for tonight.
You try and be proactive, right? I mean, really.
And she wants the centerpiece back on there?
I like what you did. You never know. Life's a box of chocolates.
Look like they got ready quite quickly. Going on writing retreat, peaceful. Oh, I love these. Facilitating. Well, actually, nobody. It's the Red Deer writers. I don't belong to them, but they do this annual retreat there. And they have some space. I'm in it's called Raven Writers. It's very home. And so they have spaces to sit in. So knowing that place. Oh, have you been there before? Yes, yeah. Feeling a hunger to just be away. My favorite place in the world. It is. I don't know. Probably 96, 97, somewhere in there. Accepted Michelle Rayons and Aramata and a few other people who were interested. And so that sort of felt like it honored my name. Why did we bring these? To see how to nurture this. And we ended up having wow. It's been pleased to be here for that. Few different people actually spoke that approached me to be on there. That's the 10-year goal. And honestly, the 30-year goal is for Mario. I mean, it's a big part, like that part of it. It's just some stuff.
There's 7. But one up and down.
Yeah, I'm putting most of them was out of 7. Yeah. Does that one have 7?
I believe that one does.
8 has 8. 2, 3, 6, 8. Yep.
That one has 7. One of them has 7.
But there's a connection.
Because I did some clinical pastor in 1986. And we did our opening retreat. Yeah, and like it's long, it's like much more evangelical meaning in the beginning. And it's time I knew that I took to boycott it.
Staff. Stop being staff. But
I think
it's
they
very, I mean, still, you'd be more into evangelicals, but I've never stopped.
Here's one of the box.
Yes, and there's only 2 wheels.
If people could regather, we're going to begin worship shortly.
It starts at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, so I'm planning to stay with my sister-in-law
Soon we are going to have a worship together. So please come to the seat and prepare the worship with me. Beloved friends in Christ, I'm Reverend Mian Kim. I serve in Fort McLeod and Granham Pastoral Church. I'm so glad to be here with you at this time. Over the past 3 days, Our minds have been renewed, our hearts comforted, and we have been filled with fresh vision and hope. We offer our heartfelt thanks again to our moderator, Carmen, for her faithful efforts in making this experience possible. Can you applaud again? As we enter into this closing time of worship, we hope for the words of Ezekiel chapter 47 we have heard for 3 days is embodied within us. That streams of living water may flow from within and through us, so that healing and restoration and new life may begin and flourish wherever we go. So let us worship together. I'd like to invite Sam Bianason, lay representative from 5th Avenue Memorial United Church, Medicine Hat, to come forward to read the Bible scripture for us.
Hello. I want to reintroduce myself. I'm Sam Bjarnason. Mian did an excellent job introducing me. She even got my last name right. So I'm going to be reading Ezekiel chapter 47, verses 1 to 12. If I mess up, I am sorry. I'm not the best at reading Bible verses. Then he brought me back to the entrance of the temple. There water was flowing from below the threshold of the temple toward the east, for the temple faced east. And the water was flowing down from below the south end of the threshold of the temple, south of the altar. Then he brought me out by way of the north gate and led me around on the outside to the outer gate that faces towards the east. And the water was coming out on the south side. Going on eastward with a cord in his hand, the man measured 1,000 cubits, and then led me through the water, and it was ankle deep. Again, he measured 1,000, and led me through the water, and it was knee deep. Again, he measured 1,000, and led me through the water, and it was up to the waist. Again, he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I could not cross, for the water had risen, it was deep enough to swim in, a river that could not be crossed. He said to me, "Mortal, have you seen this?" Then he led me back along the bank of the river. As I came back, I saw on the bank of the river a great many trees on the one side and on the other. He said to me, "This water flows towards the eastern region and goes down into the Arabah. And when it enters the sea of stagnant waters, the water will become fresh. Wherever the river goes, every living creature that swarms will live, and there will be many fish. Once these waters reach there, it will become fresh, and everything will live where the water goes. Everyone will stand fishing beside the sea from En-gedi," sorry, this might be wrong, "to Eneglaim. It will be a place for the spreading of nets. Its fish will be of a great many kinds, like the fish of the great sea. But its swamps and marshes will not become fresh. They are to be left for salt. On the banks on both sides of the river, there will grow all kinds of trees for food. Their leaves will not wither, for their fruit fail. But they will bear fresh fruit every month, because the water for them flows from the sanctuary. Their fruit will be good for food, and their leaves for healing." Thank you.
I'd like to invite Reverend Tony Snow and the Indigenous elder to come forward to share the water story with us.
Dagun Chawam in Town Chistabi. We are very happy to have here Anne-Marie Campio from Drift Pile, lives at Enoch, and is a traditional person in our communities. So we have great respect for her coming here to share with us a story about the water.
Can you see me? Just kidding. Oh, I better put this down here. I come from the little people. Before I start, I must do the offering and the protocol with the tobacco, because where I come from, tobacco represents so much. And one reason why we use it is because what I share with you today will stay with you. But when you don't do the tobacco, it yonders. So we honor this because it comes from Mother Nature. And we always find ways to put it back, what we take. And I will first do the opening prayer. I'm a Woodland Cree, so I'm going to do some of it in my language. Tatem kwaya sumuko piti gwini gwa aimi tanwa kakyo mo tamina magamini ki aksota kimi witin ki pikswat no manepi kakyo. I want to thank the helpers that helped me get here, because we could have got tickets. I was kidding. But my granddaughter was my driver, so I think we did pretty good timing, because when it's anything spiritual and cultural for me, no matter what time I leave, somehow I just get there in time. But not Indian time, just in time. But I know I'm going to be short and sweet here. I got 5 minutes, so somebody just go like this when it's done. I like to just go and respect people's time and schedule they have here. So I'm basically going to share with you what the water means to us in a sacred way, in a traditional way. I was given the gift to be able to work with the water. In our language, it's called nippy. You'll know that, real easy, nippy. So my grandmother, she passed on this gift to me, because most of the things that we have within ourselves is passed on to us from teachings, and some things we earn. That's how it works with the Woodland Cree where I come from. Although I married into Enoch, I've been there 43 years. My husband passed away from COVID. So now I just carry on what I continue doing with the sweetgrass and tobacco. So before I go on, we must honor the water. Where are we without the water? Where? How can we manage without water? Nippy. It's not just something to drink, it's also very sacred. Because with us, it's always an honor, because we use it in so many ways, So I think he wants to do the water thing. Can we get that? When we do the water, we think of it so highly. And we always offer it to the Creator, grandfathers, Jesus, God, to whatever understanding, to give thanks, because when I was young, we were always told the first thing you do when you wake up, you have some water in your body. So we drink a little bit. So we always have water. So So we offer it to the grandfathers and to the spirits and all the animal kingdom, all those that need the water to get by, to survive. So when we do our spiritual, now what I share with you, I ask you to try not to put any of this on media, okay? Or on, just for yourselves, because it's something sacred I'm teaching you. Like the sweetgrass, Because if I hear you guys, I'm going to make you pick your own willow. No, it's kidding.